In this video, I will be demonstrating how to teach and weld a 2F weld on this 3/16 inch carbon steel. The first thing we need to do is we need to position and clamp our 2-inch flat bar onto our table. And I'm just going to make sure that the clamps are off to the side of my piece so that they don't get in the way of the welding torch as I teach my points. After I've clamped my parts to the work table, I'm going to go ahead and go over to the welder and set the weld settings we will be using. Since we are welding 3/16 inch carbon steel, I'll use a wire speed of 153 and a voltage of 19. Also, it's important to note that I have my machine configured for standard MIG welding, not pulse MIG. And also I'm using a 9010 CO2 argon gas mix. My gas flow is set at 30 CFH and my wire diameter is 0.045 inches. Now I'm ready to create a new program. The first thing I'll do is I'll navigate to my program tab, then the number tab, and I'll select the desired program number. Although this program says it's empty, just to be sure, I'm going to make sure I delete all the points from the program, and then I'll go ahead and rename the program by going to the name tab. I'll give it a simple name such as F2, and when I'm done with that, I'll select enter to confirm this name. Now that I've done that, I'm ready to set my weld speed. To do that, I'll make sure I'm on the edit tab and I'll turn the right knob to the desired speed of 15 inches per minute. Before I actually teach any program points, I first need to make sure that I have the correct amount of wire coming out of the welding torch. Since I'm doing MIG welding on 3/16 inch steel using standard MIG, I'm going to make sure I have 1/2 inch of wire coming out of my contact tip. And doing this now ensures that I will have the correct position of the torch from my seam as I teach my points. So now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and teach a home position away from my part by pushing the green button. I then will create a few more approach points using the green button just to make sure that the welding torch avoids the workpiece as it gets closer to the weld. Now I'm ready to teach the first point of my weld seam. I'll use the joystick on the top of the robot to gently move the robot torch tip into the weld seam. At this point, it is important to get the correct orientations, so I'm going to use the joystick to make sure that I get a 45-degree work angle and then also a 0 push and drag angle. A quick press of the green button and a quick press of the red button will store this as an arc on position, and then a long press of the top button will store this orientation since I had carefully set it. I can then press that top button to recall the orientation so that it can be transferred exactly along the length of the seam. Again, I'm using the joystick to position the tip of the wire, and then I'll press the green button to store this as an intermediate point along the length of the seam. Again, I recall my orientation using the top button, and then I use my joystick to position that wire tip right into my seam, and then I teach the point, and then I turn my arc off to signify that the arc turns off at this point in the weld. I then teach a few retract positions, just making sure that the robot clears the part. Before I do any welding, I make sure I do a dry run, just to be sure I didn't create any errors and that it'll be a safe weld. And then also I watch the tip of the wire to make sure that it's tracking exactly along the corner of that seam. And I take a look and make sure that my orientations are what I would expect. I'm now ready to weld my part, so I just need to navigate to my weld screen and make sure that my arc safety is turned off. And then I push play, or I push the run button to play the program.